Good morning, everybody. I know you're not used to seeing our ugly mug so early on a weekend, but thanks ever so much for those of you who have decided to tune in. It is a very special episode this morning. Both Gilly and myself have the pleasure, I suppose, this morning. I've been joined by friend of the pod, Mr. Graham Hyde. How are you doing, Graham?
I'm good, thank you, mate. How are you?
Very well, thank you for asking. Looking forward to heading down to Watford in a short while. And Mr. Kieran Maguire, author of The Price of Football. You may have seen all over Twitter when he's doing his accountancy type duties on different and varied football clubs. How are you doing, Kieran?
I'm sound, thanks, Luke. I'm looking forward to seeing Brighton 0 a little bit later this afternoon at the Emirates.
Lovely stuff. Thanks ever so much to everybody this morning for getting up and getting on the podcast. It is a little bit too early for me. I've only had one coffee, so if there's anything that doesn't quite make sense, then you know why. But yeah, we'll run the intro and we'll have a bit of chat about these figures that have been released for Leeds.
Hi, this is Don Matteo, and you are listening to the Ought to Know Better podcast. Let's do this.
Cheers, Matt. Good morning, everybody. Thanks ever so much for joining us. As I say, we've got a special edition of Ought to Know Better this morning, and we've named it after Kieran's book, The Price of Football, and we've called it a Leeds edition because, as we all know, the recent finances have been released by Leeds United, and they do look for quite comfortable reading from somebody who probably doesn't know that much about football or finances or either. Let's be honest. So yeah, we thought we'd drag a specialist on and a gentleman who specialises in, I suppose, writing bits and pieces about that, Kieran. So first things first, really. I obviously don't know anything really about finance. I know very little about football. I'm a Leeds fan. So in a nutshell, do they look as comfortable as what they probably should do at first reading?
Yes, I think they're probably better than expected in the sense that, remember, in all of this, to make a profit in a year in which we really were hit by the pandemic to a greater extent than could have been anticipated is a very good achievement indeed. And the impact of getting to the Premier League. Leeds United made more money from TV last season than they did in the 15 seasons prior to that put together. So that just shows the allure and the impact that being a Premier League club can bring. But I think what Leeds didn't do is go crazy. Some clubs, when they go up, they do think that they've just won the lottery and they spend beyond their means, and things can go very quickly wrong because they're advised by agents or there's an acclimatization period. And then they find themselves struggling both financially, which then puts pressure on the football side of things. Leeds don't appear to have gone down that route, in my opinion. Of course, other opinions are available.
Yeah, good stuff. So I suppose where a good starting point, really, I suppose, is to go through and try and simplify the tweets that you released, Kieran, the screenshots, into layman's terms. A lot of people won't understand those. I, for one, wouldn't probably understand what each of those tweets in terms of the financial breakdowns, what that actually means to us, not only as a fan, but what have we been up to over the last couple of years or so for these fixtures for these finances to be released?
If we take a look at first of all, Leeds made a profit. Now, there are only two teams in the Premier League that made a profit last season, and that was Leeds and Sheffield United. Now some people will say it's because they're both from Yorkshire and they don't, and therefore they don't like the idea of overspending. But Sheffield United. This is the crazy thing about football. If Sheffield United had avoided relegation, they would have made a loss, because all of the clubs at the bottom of the league they have huge bonuses for avoiding relegation. And that was the same with Leeds. I think Leeds paid out, more than £30 million in wage costs for avoiding relegation. And if people say, well, is that crazy? It's not. It's sound business sense. And the reason for that is that if you get another season in the Premier League, then you're getting, Leeds made £130 million from TV money. You get 130 million or dependent on where you finish in the table, it varies, but you only get 40 million in parachute payments. So you pay out 30 million in wages, you get an extra 90 million pounds in TV money. All of a sudden, these crazy numbers start to look sense. So Leeds made a lot of money. Football clubs get money from three places: ticket sales, broadcasting, and sponsorship commercial. As far as ticket sales are concerned, clearly there was nothing taking place because of the year of pandemic. TV money is linked to two things. First of all, how popular are you with the broadcasters? Now, and I know for all of that time that Leeds United were not in the Premier League, they were the biggest draw for Sky as far as the EFL TV deal was concerned. Yeah. And I know that caused friction. It was irritating from a fan's point of view because you knew that it was going to be you having to do the 12:30 p.m. kickoffs on a Saturday at Bournemouth and Reading and all of those places, which from a fan's point of view, are a nightmare. And you didn't get a lot of money for it. What happens now, if you play on live TV more than 10 times, if you're picked more than 10 times, every additional time you get an extra £1 million. So if it's 15, you get an extra 5 million. If it's 20, you get an extra 10 million. And Leeds were popular. They were popular because A, they're a big club. B, they played football, which the broadcasters loved. So that they made more money from that. And the second issue is if you finish bottom of the Premier League, you get what's known as a merit payment of 2.2 million. If you finish second bottom, you get twice that. If you finish third bottom, you get 3 times that. By finishing ninth, they got 11 times the 2.1 million. So that was an extra 20 million pounds coming into the club. So where you finish in the Premier League, you might go to the last 2 or 3 games of the season and you think, well, we could finish somewhere between 14th and 9th. Who gives a hoot? Well, if you finish 9th, then that's an extra 10 million pounds or more than 10 million pounds, which is going into next season's playing budget. So every match matters. Whereas if you look at if you're in the Championship, if you're in League One, does it matter between 9th and 14th? In those divisions, there's more dead rubbers than a malfunctioning condom factory. And as I've got no idea where that came from. But in the Premier League, you will have the manager, because the manager will have the finance director and the board saying, this still is important. I don't want anybody to be at the beach 4 or 5 games to go because we know that we're going to stay up. So that's where the money comes in. Where does the money go out? Well, football's a talent industry, so it goes out in the form of wages. So as far as Leeds' wage bill was concerned, it went up by £30 million. And again, that sounds a lot of money, but remember, an awful lot of that was your avoidance of relegation payments. Based on my figures, and I just stick numbers into a very big calculator. The average wage was just shy of 55 grand a week. That means Leeds top half of the table as far as wages are concerned. But if you want to finish top half of the table in the league, then you've got to go and pay the wages which go along with it. And remember, that's going to include win bonuses. That's going to include bonuses for where the club finished at the end of the season, because everything is geared towards, it's very much a performance-based club. From the information we can see, we don't know the inner workings of Leeds United, and I don't pretend to, but what you can sort of pick out, a few tidbits from reading the numbers. So that they are, I would say, now top half of the table when it comes to wages. But you've got the likes of the 2 Manchester clubs, and I won't mention their names because I know it's a sensitive subject. It's early in the morning. They're paying in the region of 150 to 160 grand a week, and that's the issue in the Premier League, is that there's haves and have-nots and so on.
I guess so. When you release those tweets and start seeing the responses to it, I think there's people that aren't used to reading balance sheets and understanding EBITDA and so on are in a position of, well, this is old information. Why are you giving us information that's 11, 12, 15 months old? Can you just explain just how much it takes for a business to put together the information that you've been sharing and just why there is that lag?
Yeah, I mean, it is old information, but it's the newest old information. That's the way I think you've got to view it. The club has probably put those accounts together by the end of July. But legally, you don't have to publish until 9 months after your year end. So Leeds' financial year is the 30th of June. Therefore, it's got until the end of March to publish. Now, it's a bit like I don't know your personal circumstances, but I have to submit a tax return each year. Lots of people have to do that. If you're running your own business, you're a high rate taxpayer, blah blah blah. If you're freelance, whatever it is. So I submit my tax return. I actually do it in April or May because I'm a dweeb. That's how we rock. But I don't send it into HMRC until the 31st of January because that. Yeah, and it's the same. I'm a teacher that's my job's a teacher. When I set assignments to my students, I'll say, well, the deadline is the 12th of May, and by the 11th of May, I've got 3 people out of 130 who've submitted. On the day of submission, they all pile in. So Leeds, Stoke, about half a dozen other clubs all submitted their accounts on effectively the 31st of March because from their point of view, they say some of this information is commercially sensitive. We don't want to know. Rather, we don't want our competitors to know. Because people say, well, how much are Leeds paying in wages? How much have they spent on players? How much have they got from selling players? What's the score with the stadium? How much have they spent since the year end? So there's lots of data there that if you want to pick up a few nuggets, and my personal view is the information isn't hugely important, but at the same time, it's worth slightly more than nothing. So therefore, you put it out as late as possible because you don't want your competitors to know. And I think that's especially important when it comes to the January window, because nobody wants. If people can say, well, okay, they've spent so much on wages, we can work out their losses. We know how close they are to financial fair play. Then they get a rough idea of what you can do in the January window. So very few clubs put stuff out before January because they want to keep it quiet. It does involve a lot of guesswork, but if you've got a bit of information, your guesswork can be slightly more informed. So that's why we tend to see all of the information coming out, February, Marchish.
Spot on. Yeah, cheers for that. Yeah. So that's pretty much like in terms of where the finances come from, why they released them, and that sort of thing. I just want to touch upon a couple of things that sort of jumped out at me. I think first time when I looked through them, Kieran, when you released them a couple of days ago. The first real, I don't know if it was even a red flag or whether it was a green flag, but the first thing that really popped out was a tweet that you put lender and then in brackets AR, which I'm assuming was an Andrea Radrizzani ? Waived loans of £21 million in the year and £8 million of loans converted into shares. What does that mean to the average Joe? Is he making the club look more profitable? Is he trying to? What's he trying to do there? I mean, in your sort of honest.
Right. I think this is all to do with the relationship with San Francisco 49ers and their investment. Radrizzani, and here when I say Radrizzani, it's not guarantee, it's an assumption. Mm-hmm. I'm reasonably confident that it's right, but I'm just caveating myself.
Just to make sure they sued or anything.
Somebody who probably has the initials AR has lent money to Leeds United in the past. And he's lent that money and he's charged interest on those loans. But what he's not done is that the interest is just sort of clocked up in a separate account. Leeds never physically paid him that interest. So, it was clocking up in a different account. And therefore, let's say that, each year it's £3 million of interest, or whatever it's going to be. And it gets added to the pot. And then something happened over the course of the year, which could be connected to the 49ers investment. where Radrizzani has said, right, well, Leeds now owe me around about £21 million in interest, which I've never actually physically collected. And what I'm now going to do is I'm going to say, I don't want it. Yeah, forget it. So it's from the club's point of view, that's great, because it means it never has to pay him that 21 million. With regards to the funding issue, the debt, again, he's lent the club money. So if the thing about there's two ways of investing into a business, into a football club. A, you can lend, and B, the club can issue you shares. And the thing about shares is that they never have to be repaid. So if you want to get your money back from shares, you've got to sell those shares to somebody else. What Radrizzani, a person who we think has the initials AR has done. What this person has done is said, right, I've lent the club £8 million. Instead of asking for it back, instead, I'm going to convert it into shares. And at some point in the future, I might sell those shares to somebody else. Now, that could be 49ers. Yeah, I think there is a common perception amongst Leeds fans and also amongst the people you talk to in the world of finance is that 49ers are going to take over the club. They're going to own more than 50% of the club at some point in the future. It's not a guarantee. It's not an obligation necessarily, but why get involved as a junior partner, especially as 49ers have got more resources than Mr. Radrizzani. So that's why. Is it good news? Yeah, I think it is good news because once you've said I don't want the money back, you can't go and change your mind.
So I guess, Kieran, is it possible in a way that if you're talking about a shared ownership situation like we currently have at Leeds United, that if the 49ers enterprises were going to put some money in to help pay with transfers, etc., that rather than in effect actually put capital into Leeds United, an individual at the other side of that equation could sort of say, well, look, I'm owed this, I'm going to write off as commensurate. So rather than putting additional capital, would that work in that sense?
Yeah. I mean, what it might do is it increases Radrizzani's number of shares.
Yeah,
that helps. Or alternatively, he could sell some of his shares direct to 49ers, and that's a private transaction between the two people. But it does look as if Leeds did generate some cash during the year from share issues, though. So I think it's probably a bit of both. That when the increase in investment by 49ers took place, did the club benefit? Yes, it did. It got more cash. That cash goes into the pot. Now that pot's going to be involved. Sorry, about my dog. He's shaking his head in the background.
Oh no, I thought it was Luke. Sorry.
Yeah, it's my dog as well. He was yelping to go out for a wee, so I just had to run downstairs. He's of an age now where he can't hold his bladder for longer than 30 seconds, and if he needs a wee, he needs to get out. So
yeah.
Apologies.
This is going to win us the BAFTA, isn't it? Dog wee talk. So yeah, as far as the shares are concerned, Leeds have two choices when it comes to switching the ownership. A, they can issue fresh shares to 49ers. The advantage there is the money comes into Leeds United Football Club. The alternative is Radrizzani can sell some of his shares to 49ers, and that benefits him financially. And then you can have sort of a combination of the two.
It's good, got you. So based on this behaviour, I suppose, in the finances, how likely do you think, from your sort of expert opinion, do you think that shift is likely to happen sooner rather than later?
I suspect that there is some form of agreement between the two parties, that there will be triggers. So it could be that if Leeds United are in the Premier League at the start of 2024, then it could be that the 49ers have an option to buy Radrizzani out at an agreed price. So everything would have been done in advance. I've had Parag on my podcast. He's clearly extremely capable, knows his way around sports finance and sports marketing, and that's where 49ers see the issues in terms of Leeds. Leeds sold £20 million worth of merchandise last year. That's a ridiculous amount of money. They've probably sold more merchandise than they'll generate from ticket sales in a season. So I think that's an indication of the size of the fan base, because you and I both know that the fan base, it goes beyond Leeds itself. Whereas I'm a Brighton fan. Nobody becomes a Brighton fan in Cyprus or other parts of my next door neighbour, in fact, is a Leeds United season ticket holder, and I live near Brighton, and he supported Leeds all his life. And he's lived down here all his life. So that's the nature of Leeds United. It's a club which has a much broader fan base than many other clubs. And therefore, I think that's where the 49ers see the potential growth. Could there be some further tie-ups in terms of pre-season tours in the US, or some sort of link up between Leeds and 49ers? That's where they're going to see the growth. Are they going to start selling NFL style merchandise with a Leeds United badge on? They will be thinking of things like that in order to grow that revenue stream. And for a club that has just got to the Premier League, those numbers are just ridiculously good. You look at clubs such as Manchester United. I think they normally sell in the region around about 80 million a year. And
right.
Loathe them or loathe them, yet they are a big club.
Yeah.
But just in terms of that commercial success, sorry, when we're talking about the commercial success that Leeds have had in those various different streams that you're talking about, the finances flowing in, do we expect year-on-year incremental increases on that based on the ability to secure better sponsorship deals and then the additional performance-related income that comes from that? Or is there a ceiling outside of those ESL clubs that the other clubs just don't get to? What's? I know that you're not a Leeds finance specialist. You look at the price of football. So in terms of looking at other clubs and the way that they've gone, we're a year behind Villa, for example, things like that. Is there an expectation that will incrementally just build season on season?
I think there is growth still, because Leeds are still an unknown quantity. So what they've got to do, if you take a look at Leeds's total commercial income at 36 million, it's already gone into the top half of the Premier League. The only clubs outside of the ESL 6, whatever we want to call them, the sneaky 6 after what they did, you've got Everton have got 47 million, but shall we say Everton have the benefit of some money coming from Alicia Usmanov's companies. So I don't know whether you're aware that they I think they're getting around 10 or 11 million pounds a year, because one of Alicia Usmanov's companies sponsored the training ground. Now, people might say to themselves, why would a Eastern European, or why would a Russian-based mining company pay 10 million pounds a year to get the naming rights of a training facility in Merseyside? As a sponsor, are you getting 10 million pounds worth of benefit from that? So that seemed very, very generous. And another one of Usmanov's companies also sponsored had the naming rights for the women's football shirts, which was and I'm all for growing the women's team and the men's team. And again, it seems a strange thing to do. It seems very very unusual sponsorship to have a Russian mobile telephone company sponsoring a women's football team on Merseyside. So Everton did have more, but I think eyebrows have been raised in relation to some of those sponsorship deals. And also, Everton have now suspended that relationship with Usmanov. So if you take them out of the equation, the only club that are now ahead of Leeds is Leicester City. And I think Leicester City, again, you look at the nature of the relationship between Leicester City and the owners. Leicester have got a huge fan base back in Thailand, where the owners come from, on the back of winning the Premier League in 2016. Incredible achievement. It doesn't matter who you support. Incredible achievement. Making progress in the Champions League the following year. So I think you're absolutely right, Matt. There is a natural ceiling, and the way that you get get past that natural ceiling is European participation, because that will start to build global interest in the club. And you've got to have success, because if you take a look, I talk to people in different countries around the world, and I've all of my teaching life has been in Manchester and Liverpool. So, if I'm teaching overseas, the first question I get asked, are you United or City or Liverpool or Everton, and so on. And there is very much a focus on the international markets on relatively few clubs. I think it's going to be a challenge for Leeds to break into that, because it is a closed shop. We know that everything is geared towards those clubs trying to protect their interests. That's what they were trying to do with Super League. But it will be difficult, but not impossible.
Okay, so you touched on one club there that Radrizzani has talked about in the past, about potentially emulating their commercial model and the approach to the game. That's Leicester. So when looking through the balance sheets across the course of the last 2-3 years, it does. I mean, I'll say it becomes obvious. It looks to me, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks to me that player sales just isn't generating that revenue. So the outgoings have been minimal, but there is talk of emulating Leicester's model, which it has been to generate lots of money coming in through player sales. So is there an expectation maybe, or is that a reasonable inference to take from the books that when Rads has mentioned that we might expect to see 2 or 3 key players leave over the course of a couple of years in order to generate enough revenue coming in, or are Leeds in a strong enough position to not have to resort to that?
Right. Do Leeds have to sell? No. But could it be through selling for one player for one big fee and signing 2 or 3 players that you strengthen the overall squad? I would say potentially yes. Now, look, I know nothing about football. I always say, but I'm quite happy with numbers. I go to football and I spend 90 minutes calling Mike Dean a wanker, along with everybody else. But I've been lucky that I teach for organisations such as the League Managers Association, and I go along and I'm trying to give them the advice on the finance side of things, and then I'll sit down at lunch and I'll just listen to them talk amongst themselves or pretend to join in a conversation. And it's at times like that when you realise that what we know about football is zero. When you hear them talking about the tactical and the technical and the psychological and the physical relationships that they have in terms of their day-to-day job, what we hear from pundits is just scratching the surface. What we think we know is just scratching the surface. These people are professionals. So I don't know enough about the football side of things, but my observation would be what we are seeing in many clubs in the Premier League is that at the back of their minds, they are looking to sell one player a year and perhaps some peripheral players. What I think people might be surprised about is that the club that has made the most money from player sales over the last 5 years is Chelsea. And people are going, hold on, Chelsea's a buying club. But, Diego Costa, Morata, Hazard, Abraham, Tomori, you actually take a look at Chelsea. And the other thing that Chelsea do, which nobody realises, Chelsea have got about a dozen academies dotted around the country, because they were advertising for one near Brighton recently. I'm going, well, why did Chelsea need an academy in Brighton? It's because as a result of the elite player performance plan, which came in a few years ago, you can now effectively harvest young talent all around the country, and you develop that. And Chelsea have brought through some really good young players, as we've known in recent years. And if they don't quite make it to be a first choice, then they can sell them. Abraham scored a shed load of goals this season in Italy. Tomori's played really well, but those players cost them nothing, and they probably raised about 70 million. So it's not a problem selling players, but what you don't want to do, you don't want to go and sell 5 players in one window. It's a case of 5 first team. If at the back of your mind say, we're probably going to sell 1 player each summer, that's going to give us a minimum of say 30 to 40 million, and that gets reinvested. That model is actually quite common. Liverpool were doing that a few years ago. If you think, they sold Suarez, then they sold Sterling, then they sold Coutinho. One big sale per season. And the Liverpool business model is they aim to break even i.e. by breaking even, the money that comes in from ticket sales, from broadcasting and sponsorship, that is matched by their cost, their wage costs and other bits and pieces. They aim to break even, and then they have one player sale a year, and that's a model that works. Liverpool, I know there's no love lost between Leeds fans and Liverpool. Liverpool as a business model is probably one of the best in the Premier League.
Interest. That does interest me.
Yeah, but sorry, Luke, I was just going to move on to something, just a slightly different one. Have you got a question on that one?
No, you're all right. I was just saying how interesting that actually is, because you look at these, these super clubs, and you look at and it's hard to imagine how they're not all profitable businesses, but the reality is that they're that they're not. So for you to sort of point out, particularly Liverpool's model, it is quite interesting to me.
Cool. Good.
I think around player signings and so on and investment. So there's a bit of fear at the moment. There's been talk about upgrading the stadium because the stadium's holding us back a little bit. We've got lots and lots of supporters that are still on waiting lists for season tickets, and we're not generating the match day income that we could now that we've moved past the restrictions and so on. And fears around how that will then impact the ability for the owners to actually invest into the playing squad. What's the typical approach, rather than buying a brand new stadium like Arsenal did, in terms of upgrading it? Is there recently, has there been investment in that manner that's allowed an upgrade of a ground that was already in situ? And how might that be put together financially in terms of that investment type without impacting the actual investment in the squad?
Okay, we've seen that at Liverpool again. We've seen that at Manchester City. Now, Manchester City have got a different funding model to most clubs because they've got owners who can put that money in, and also any infrastructure spend is ignored from the financial fair play point of view. So you can spend as many millions as you want, and it's not going to impact. If we take a look at the Liverpool model, which I'm not sure this will necessarily go down hugely well with all fans, is that till about 4 years ago, the capacity of Anfield was 45,000. They increased that to 54,000. And a lot of those additional seats have gone to hospitality, have gone to corporates. And that whether you like it or not, you need it, because the average amount that a fan's going to pay, what's the season ticket costing you at Ellen Road? 600-700? Yeah. So
average.
Yeah. So if you get an extra 5,000 seats at £500-600, and you take off VAT and you take off the costs of more shoots, it doesn't actually generate a lot of money from regular fans. So what Liverpool did was that a significant number of those additional seats have gone to the corporates. And the other thing that Liverpool do is you say, okay, Liverpool, they're playing brilliant football. Regardless of who you support, they're playing amazing football. They're incredibly attractive. They're selling out every match where they go. What Liverpool do is that they don't actually allocate a huge number of those extra seats to season ticket holders. So Liverpool have got a capacity of 54,000. They've only got 27,000 season ticket holders. We've got 23 at Brighton. We're nothing like Liverpool. West Ham have got 54,000 season ticket holders. So you say, well, why on earth are they doing that? Because you get your season ticket money early. What's the logic behind that? Well, we've just said our season ticket costs us 600-700 quid. So we're paying 32 quid for you work it out how much it's costing you for a match. And then what Liverpool do is say, no, we're only going to sell a small number of those additional tickets to season ticket holders. So who else is going to buy them? Tourists. And I'm an old punk. Tourists mean money, as sung by the Sex Pistols in God Save the Queen. Tourists are great for football club finances because, first of all, you charge them 50 quid a ticket instead of the 30 quid that you're paying. Because you sell them individual match day tickets. What's the tourist fan going to do when they get to Anfield?
Spend a fortune on merch, aren't they?
Yeah, getting shop.
Yeah, they're going to shop. So I share an office with a Liverpool season ticket holder, and he says, "Well, I don't go to the merchandise shop. I'm the same as you guys. We go to the same boozer. We get there at midday. We spend 2.5 hours there. We go to the match. You might buy 1 pint at the match. You might buy a pie, but compared to what the day fans are spending, our spend is actually very low. I don't bother to buy a program. I'm not going to buy a souvenir, this, that, or I'm not going to buy a Lewis Dunk duvet cover or all of the crap that football clubs sell. I'm a regular. I've been doing the 50-year slog the same as you guys, and that's why the clubs have this strategy in place. Now, Leeds United fan base far better than could Leeds, if they've stuck another 5,000 seats on the stadium, and they would fund that by long-term loans, and those loans would be interest only. That's what Spurs have done. People say, Spurs have borrowed 800 million. How can they possibly repay it? They're not repaying it till 2051. They're just paying interest on it. And I go, well, okay. Well, in 2051, I'm dead, so I'm not worried. It's not my problem anymore. And you see that from Daniel Levy's point of view, he's kicked down. And what will happen is when it gets close to 2051, Spurs will phone up the bank and say, "Do you want your money back?" And the bank will say, "Well, you've already, you've been a good customer to us. We'll knock back that loan for another 20 years." Because what do banks do? They just lend money. They don't care who they're lending. So they might as well carry on lending it to Spurs. If Spurs are a good credit risk, then it's easy money from the bank's point of view. So if the stadium expansion is funded by borrowings on a long-term basis, and you get a decent interest rate, Spurs are paying between 2.5% and 3.5%. That's we've got inflation at 8%, so it's actually they're paying negative interest in reality. Then that's how it's funded.
Just to echo that, if I can, Kieran, having sort of spoken to Angus Kinnear in relation to the stadium redevelopment and this whole discussion around maybe an extra 20,000 tickets or 20,000 seats, the model that Leeds will be following is exactly what Kieran has said, which is that ultimately, whilst there may be a slither of those are put into the mix for potential new season ticket holders or new low price tickets, the model is to generate as much commercial revenue as possible, because as Angus would say, this is about maintaining then the price structure for the remainder of the fans by milking, as Kieran quite rightly says, that tourist pound, milking basically the corporate and commercial aspects of hospitality that mean that the club can start to challenge on match day revenue the Spurs of this world, the West Hams of this world now, with these 55,000 seater stadia that are able to generate huge commercial income on a match day basis, plus also have facilities that they can then and to use one of the phrases that you use regularly, sweat their assets, Kieran, that every single day where there isn't a match on, they can be doing corporate hospitality dues, they can be doing weddings, if you like, even, that mean that they can make more from it.
If Leeds in the present Ellen Road, this season their match day income, I will imagine, will be 20 million, perhaps a wee bit more. Spurs are going to make 120. Now, Spurs capacity stadium, it hits 62,000. Ellen Road, 37, 38?
Roundabout, 37.
Yeah. So you go, well, hold on. How come they're making 6 times as much money when the ground's less than twice the size? It's because, as Graham says, they target a fan base. And again, if you look at Manchester United, and I hate Manchester United. My wife's ex-husband works at Manchester United. I've got plenty of reasons to hate them.
That's as good as any of that, Kieran, I suppose.
Yeah. But if you take a look at Manchester United, for all of the bad things the Glazers have done, season ticket prices haven't gone up for 10 years. They get more money from the match day tickets. They charge more for the membership schemes. They're charging more to the corporates. But in order to keep the level of anger within reasonable limits, they've not actually, and they could make more. Yeah, they could charge more money to season ticket holders, because if the club puts up a season ticket price, what we're going to do? We're going to moan. We're going to moan and moan and moan, and we're going to say we're not going to pay it, and then we pay it. That's how it works. But it does create, it does create bad relationship between the club and fan.
So would you say that's pretty much the nature of the beast as a Leeds fan now? We've either got to accept that things are going to become more corporate, bigger, if we want to, not just survive, but succeed in the Premiership and sort of outgrow our ceiling, or we can stay as Leeds, who are known to be a massive fan base and be proud and everything, and potentially be a championship team for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, I think you've got to be realistic. I mean, if we take a look at Scotland, there's two massive clubs in Scotland in Rangers and Celtic, and they were supposed to be playing a friendly. That's right. Friendly, I don't know. In Australia in November during the World Cup break. And both clubs were going to make more money from that one match than they generate from the whole season in broadcast money in Scotland. Wow. And the Rangers and the Celtic fans kicked off, and the match has now been cancelled. So again, that's the choice you got to make. You can stay pure and say, we don't want to take the corporate shilling. We're old school fans, we're legacy fans, and if you do that, rightly or wrongly, I'm old school myself. If you do that, you automatically set a ceiling for the club in terms of its ability to compete, because football's a talent game, and if you want to compete with other clubs for European places, you've got to pay European level wages.
So, Kieran, just thinking a little bit about that, about setting a ceiling and how that sort of comes against, if you like, the notion of being a legacy fan. Let's take, for example, things like socios. So obviously our club tied up with socios last year. The fans basically, pushed against it. The club took an amount probably up front, a certain slice of whatever socios make from fan interaction and fan-based connections. But when we're presenting such healthy figures in terms of the business, is there really a need to sort of move into that morally corrupt area of, kind of selling the fan base, if you like, to a cryptocurrency?
Well, we're now in the second season. I think the results for Leeds United might not be as good for 21-22 because you've signed a couple of players, you've got players who've got negotiated new contracts, and so on. So your costs are going up. You're probably not going to finish ninth, so therefore your TV money is going to go down. Yes, we'll have a season's worth of match day income as well. But you put that all together, and I think Leeds will do well if they replicate these results for 21-22. So it does make it more difficult. The clubs have been, for the last 20 years, have been saying to themselves, we've got hundreds of thousands of fans around the world. We've got the 37,000 hardcore that turn up to Ellen Road. And it doesn't matter. If you're playing Reading on a Tuesday night, you're still there because you support Leeds United. You don't support Leeds United in the Premier League. You support Leeds United. That's it. That's the nature of us legacy fans. But what about these other fans in terms of how can the club get money from them? Manchester United claim to have 1.1 billion fans on the planet, and the most money they've ever made is 627 million. So Manchester United make 55 pence per fan per year. That's crap. That is, you put it like that is crap. So what they think they can do is they've seen the pitches, they've seen the presentations from the likes of Socios, from the likes of the people that are going to bring the metaverse to the Etihad, as they're doing it with Sony, and they think that they can get more money from those fans, and they don't really care about it from a moral or ethical point of view. I have absolutely no issue with fan tokens. I have no issue with cryptocurrency if, when I'm buying a fan token, I'm buying it because for some strange reason I want to spend £75 on a cartoon picture of Neil Maupay. And it's not even a real picture. It's a picture I can look at on my phone. Now, when I'm thinking of 75, if I'm going to go and spend £75 on a picture of somebody, the proper you go, what exactly have I done? And they say, so oh yeah, but it's guaranteed by the blockchain. So I've got, okay, so somebody said, yeah, this is an authentic cartoon picture of Neil Maupay, and you expecting me to pay £75 for it, and that's and it's a way of engaging with the club. Now I engage with the club by buying my season ticket, I shouldn't at my age, but still by buying a shirt each year, by going along and vocally supporting the club. If you want to go and buy these products, then fine. You know, it is a digital Panini card. I've got old Panini collections, and I look at them and go, that's an investment, because I've got six spare Belgian left backs from the 1996 one. No, they're not investments. And I think that the issue I have with the likes of Socios and all of these people that say, well, such and such a card, such and such a token went for £30,000 in an auction, and that will be the case. I'm not denying that. But what it didn't say was that there were 30,000 other cards which went for nothing. You know, so occasionally these things are worth some money. It's the equivalent of buying a lottery ticket. And I pay my £2.50 a week for my Euro Millions. I don't consider that to be an investment. You know, I know deep down it's a dumb punt, but I don't mind doing it. Some money goes to the NHS, some money goes to good causes. And hey, for 30 seconds a week, you get a bit excited. Yeah, but married men, we're used to that. So that's the position, and it's the way the likes of Socios and all of these companies they're not saying explicitly that they're investments. What they rely on is people on social media who call themselves Bitcoin traders or NFT traders, and you and we all know that these blokes are living at home with their mum and eating pot noodles at night. But by calling themselves traders, they think they've got a bit of credibility. And so that's my concern. We're paying a lot of money for these tokens. The benefits, the engagement, when you actually dig down, and I was at a presentation from one of these organizations recently, and they use all of the buzzwords. They talk about drops and engagement and all of the intangible benefits of the an intangible benefit's not a benefit. Being able to go and choose the color of the corner flags by paying £75 for these tokens, or the music which is played at half time, or to vote for man of the match. Jesus Christ, that's not football. That's just mugging people off.
Yeah.
So that's my reservation, Graham. It's if it's sold as it's meant to be sold. I looked in my drawer. Yeah. You got that drawer next to your bed. I found I had 28 euros in my drawer. That doesn't mean that I'm a euro investor or trader. And so why should, because you've got so much money in Bitcoin? Why should that? Yeah, my dog can open doors.
Just see that in the background.
He can't close doors. He can open doors.
Brilliant. I thought I was still half asleep.
I think
that's my reservation.
No, I like it, and I don't. But I've got some cryptocurrency, but I'm certainly not an investor, and I'm certainly not peddling it anywhere else. So no, I agree with that. I think there's just one other element, and to be fair, Graham probably knows a fair bit more about this than I do. There's a spectre hanging over our club called Jean-Kevin Augustin, and there's a position where we are still in I think there has been some outcomes going through the courts and the wranglings between the clubs, and we're now in a position where, as a fan, I still don't know whether all of that balance will need to be paid. I know that he's moved on. I think he's at Nantes now, and his career's not gone particularly well. I feel really sorry for the player, but in terms of having to pay that money, are we in a position of clarity yet as to what the outcomes are, and do we even know?
No. I mean, it all depends. And again, I've spoken to some football lawyers here and say, well, what's your opinion? And they say it depends, which is as much as you'll ever get from a lawyer. Yeah, unless you're paying them 400 quid an hour. It all depends upon the final decision, which is going to be made by by CAS or whoever resolves this, as to whether Leeds United were a Premier League club, in terms of the obligation to buy at the end of the season. Now, under normal circumstances,
and that's important terminology, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's important terminology, because I think, as I recall, the contract stated the date of the end of the season, and the argument is actually that's only a nominal thing. It's really the spirit of the end of the season rather than the specific date specified in the contract. Is that right?
Yeah. So,
but with any contract, you work towards a date. A contract has a date for a specific reason. Now, it's unfortunate, I suppose, for the selling club that date was then extended and the end of the season was changed. So that's where the argument is, isn't it? I think, but
absolutely.
Look, I'm sure we have allowed for somewhere within the finances for that to be covered. I'm pretty sure. I don't think the club's poorly run in terms financially. I think Kieran's probably highlighted that. And I think if there was to be that outgoing, I mean, I don't know, Graham. If you don't know any more about this, I know we've had there was a release the other day basically stating that we've come to a conclusion, but you might not find out for half a year or 6 months' time. We're not going to release that.
So the situation is, obviously we're waiting on the final outcome from the Court of Arbitration for Sport, or CAS. It is all a question of how they view this particular clause in the contract, which said that, if we were a Premier League club by a certain date, which was deemed the end of the season traditionally, but then it got extended. We were in the same boat, really, a little bit about when we were able to purchase and at what price Jack Harrison from Man City. Except Man City basically said, well, you passed the date, tough. So we then ended up having to pay a slightly increased deal for Jack Harrison. So the club will no doubt be arguing the fact that, well, we were held to account on that basis on that contract, therefore the same should apply. And this is where you get into, as Kieran would say, the silver-tongued lawyer brigade, arguing their particular sort of, position on this. And as a club, I've no doubt that they have made contingency for if they have to pay it. But clearly they will be battling as hard as they can to avoid paying 18 million quid. And in effect, the first thing is that ultimately they are liable for a payment that now should have already been paid. That will be the first instance. And then it will be, like all payments for transfers, over a series of years, the length of what would have been Jean-Kevin Augustin's contract, that we'll have to meet the rest of the obligation. But in effect, it will be kind of pouring money down the drain, because it's not a player we own the registration for anymore. It's not a player we've got any value for. The only people I think that basically benefit from Jean-Kevin Augustin being in Leeds were Domino's, because of the number of pizzas he was ordering.
Yeah.
The agents will have got their pound of flesh.
Yeah, no doubt. So just one final question from me, and I know the guys probably have got one or two, but you mentioned in the screenshots, Kieran, that we're likely liable for up to around about 48 million should we avoid a relegation in bonus payments this season.
Yeah.
Where does that that seems a lot to me. Now, I know you probably compare that to £100 in TV, £100 million in TV revenue, and it doesn't look that much, and it's quite important that obviously the club does survive in the Premier League for a lot of financial reasons. But is that relatively high? I mean, what sort of how does that compare to, I don't know, maybe a club flirting with Europe, getting into the Champions League, for instance, and their bonuses?
I would say it's broadly similar, because if you take a look at those years that Manchester United haven't qualified for the Champions League, and of course we shed a tear, for the poor club that when it only gets into the Europa League. How do they possibly cope? The suffering that they go through is beyond me. It's the Manchester United wage bill dropped by around about 50 million. So I think it's broadly similar. Wage or employment contracts are very heavily incentivized in the Premier League. I also sometimes teach some agents, and football agents. I know they're not popular with many people. They're the biggest gossips I've ever met in my life. So they'll have screenshots of contracts for players, and they'll be showing me how much they're getting per week, and then they go through the bonuses, and you go, gee, this player can earn more in bonuses this year than I'm going to earn in my lifetime, and it's incredible stuff. So players' contracts are heavily incentivized. Because the clubs take the view is that if the club achieves X, which could be avoiding relegation, winning a cup, qualifying for the Champions League, the club knows how much extra money it can get, and therefore it says, well, we're going to get an extra 100 million. Tell you what, we want you to share some of that. You'll get 40 or whatever it's going to be, and everybody wins. The players have got that. I mean, not that I think it does. I'm not a professional footballer. To me, as somebody that's played park football, as soon as you start a match, you always give your best, and you would expect players to do exactly the same. But this is a way of financially rewarding them as well.
Yeah, just really quickly then on that, Kieran. If we don't stay up, how crippling could that be for us as a club financially?
Well, it automatically means that those payments don't get made. I suspect there will also be clauses in many of the contracts which say that should there be a relegation to the Championship, there will be a reduction. So you sign a 4-year contract, you get a base of, let's say, 45,000 a week in the Premier League. You get bonuses for this, that, and the other. You'll get a £250,000 or £1 million bonus if we avoid relegation, and then if the club does get relegated, that £45,000 a week drops to 25 or whatever it's going to be.
So because what you're saying is, I suppose, because we've been well run over the previous few years, and certainly the year of these finances, we wouldn't be too bad. If that, I mean, we're not going to have a similar case to when we were relegated all those years ago. Do you know? Potentially. I mean, I suppose what I'm angling at is Everton will be absolutely bollocked, won't they, if they were to be relegated in comparison?
Yeah. Spooky talking about getting relegated last time. I got a phone call yesterday from Peter Ridsdale.
Oh my God!
I really feel for you. I'm sorry you had to go through that.
But back to Everton. I think Everton took the view under Farhad Moshiri that they were aiming to challenge for European places, and I don't think that there are significant reductions in pay should the club be relegated. So, and on top of that, they are right at the very limit of financial fair play in the Premier League, and the financial fair play limits in the Championship drop. Everton are claiming £170 million worth of costs related to COVID, and you're going, well, why are they claiming 170? And I think in Leeds it was probably about 9 or 10. Villa, I think 60 over 2 years. Sheffield United were 10. So I've seen all these figures, and then you got Everton 100, and Everton are claiming that they've been really hit in the transfer market, being unable to sell players due to COVID. And I'm going, well, I think the reason why nobody's coming to bid 40 to 50 million for Cech Tosun and Sigurdsson's got nothing to do with COVID, in my view. So I think it's a
certainly not with Sigurdsson.
No, so. There's eyebrows raised. So they've they've got financial fair play challenges. Those challenges will be amplified in the Championship. So yeah, it doesn't look great for them. The one thing that they can do is they can sell players. Yeah, that they do have some good players, and you'd expect that they would have to sell. Whereas I think Leeds would be in a stronger position should the worst happen. You ain't going to go down.
Yeah, that was actually going to be one of my final questions. Do Leeds stay up this season?
Yeah.
I think we probably do. Anything else, Matt, that you'd like to touch upon with Kieran while we've got him?
Just one quick one. So I don't need. I know you look at a lot of clubs and probably focus more on English football than anything else. I don't know how much you know about Barca's finances, but there's been a lot of talk recently about them signing Rafinha from us. I know that was it a $500 million loan that they got that actually allowed them to operate as a club for an extended period, and they still needed to drastically reduce their wage bill to be able to get to line up with the Spanish football authorities. But there's talk of some mad figures and really some figures that I'd only expect him to be signed for if the worst was to happen and we were to be relegated. But from a base of the finances that they've had in the past, I guess the question is, how is it that they're still able to operate and buy players for such high sums and still get away with it, I suppose, is the point.
Under the Spanish rules, what they do is they say, how much money do you have to pay next year? Now, that's going to be in wages, transfer fees, and loan repayments. Now, what Barcelona have done is that they've rescheduled the loans. So they're not making any loans. So they're a bit like Spurs. They've kicked the loan repayments down the road. They're just going to pay interest. They've got an awful lot of wages off the wage bill. Yeah, we've seen all of those players that have gone. There's been some other players who are on incredible amounts of money who've agreed to take pay cuts. So that they have cut back a lot. They will have a year of a full stadium. Yeah, and Barcelona make an absolute fortune from the new camp because that they do really sweat that asset, both on match days and non-match days. So their finances are better. Yeah, they managed to sign Torres from Manchester City for 55 million in January. So I think they have freed up some wiggle room, and this will allow them to make some deals in the summer, and they'll be trying to get rid of some more players anyway.
Okay. No, thank you.
Perfect.
That makes sense.
Perfect.
That's all the questions I had, Luke.
Yeah, no problem. I think Graham might have some, but I don't know if we've lost him again. He's
frozen, isn't he?
Yeah, he needs to get the hamster back on the wheel, doesn't he? Over in Ponte Carlo. If there is anything, I'm sure.
I'm back again.
Graham, are you back with us?
Oh,
you're back. You're back.
Yeah. I don't know if you can hear me. But thank you. Yeah, the hamsters sort of, I'm giving it a prod and it's working a little bit faster. So maybe we can
not much faster.
No, you're not getting me.
We just about hear you.
In parts. What about suggesting? Go on, give it a last go.
So yeah, I don't know if you can hear me. I get. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, kind of nice, sort of late 80s reference there, Kieran, for Max Edwin. But I don't know. I guess looking at the figures, I'd be asking Kieran, does it feel to you that we're moving towards a full sort of sale? That one of the things of posting a profit is a way of demonstrating the financial health of the business so that you can potentially ask for a greater value for remaining shares?
I don't think so, because the 49ers will be looking at projections rather than historic data. They'll be looking at the management accounts, which are produced internally, and using those. I think these accounts do demonstrate the potential of Leeds United, and Leeds United in a 55 to 60,000 capacity Elland Road is going to be even more attractive to potential owners. So I think it's going forwards that the real interest is going to be.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Yeah. Look, I know you've got to get on the road very shortly, Kieran. But look, I can just thank you on behalf of everybody at All to Know Better for joining us this morning. Really, really appreciate it going through that and breaking it down for some of us who are pretty clueless when it comes to numbers and figures, and it just looks like a bit of a matrix, if I'm honest with you, to me. One last very quick question: and this probably will just answer everybody's question. Are Leeds, in your opinion, and financially, a well-run club?
Yes, yeah, unequivocally, they spent a lot of money. They spent almost 100 million on players, but the additional income was able to cover that. I think what they're not doing is going over crazy and settle into the Premier League and grow incrementally. I know we're always in a hurry as football fans, but the long road is much smoother if it's done step by step.
Perfect. Yeah, I completely agree. I do try getting that point across. Not too well sometimes on Twitter. I do tend to lose my temper quite quickly. But yeah, thank you ever so much for that. Thank you ever so much for that, Kieran. Really, really appreciate it. It'd be great to get you on maybe in 12 months' time when these have been released and things. But do stay in contact with us. Graham, as ever, thanks ever so much for your time again this morning. I'm sure we'll bump into each other again soon. Gilly, always a pleasure, never a chore. And I'm going to head off down to Watford in a short while. So again, thanks everybody. Thanks to everybody who's listened in. If you have got any further questions, if Kieran's got time, maybe fire them to him on Twitter, and I'm sure if he gets a minute or two, he'll respond to those when he gets a moment. Thanks everybody. Cheers.
Thanks for the invite, guys.
Thanks all.
Cheers.